Welcome to Cerebral Decode. You're listening to Office Politics, The Invisible Game, a reflection on the hidden forces shaping modern workplaces. Disclaimer. This audiobook discusses real-world leadership and organizational examples purely for educational and analytical purposes. All references are based on publicly available information, and interpretations are solely for learning and reflection. Never outshine the ego. Many professionals believe that excellence is always rewarded. The reality, however, is more complex. In environments where hierarchy is tied to identity and pride, displaying too much talent, too fast, or too visibly can provoke insecurity among those in power. This isn't just about performance. It's about how your success makes others feel about their own. Power and Discretion story. Don Valentine, the legendary founder of Sequoia Capital and one of the earliest backers of Apple, Cisco, Atari, and dozens of other Silicon Valley giants, offers a striking counterpoint to the usual story of self-promoting venture capitalists. In the high-energy world of the 1970s and 1980s tech boom, where many investors fought to be seen as kingmakers, Valentine deliberately chose a different path. He stayed out of the spotlight, letting the founders' faces be the public image while he focused on quietly shaping the decisions that would determine whether those companies soared or stumbled. Valentine was blunt, strategic, and unapologetically demanding, yet he carried an unusual discipline in managing his own ego. He understood that in high-stakes boardrooms, visibility could be a double-edged sword. His approach was to create influence without creating friction. One of his most famous early plays was with Apple. Valentine saw the brilliance in a young Steve Jobs, but he also recognized the risk. Jobs' energy and vision were unmatched, yet his confidence sometimes veered toward arrogance, threatening to alienate older, more conservative board members and potential partners. Rather than asserting his own dominance or trying to publicly fix Jobs, Valentine chose a subtler tactic. He let Jobs take the credit and attention while privately guiding key strategic moves. In public settings, he stayed measured, asking incisive questions and letting others connect the dots themselves. He applied the same philosophy with Cisco, Atari, and countless other portfolio companies. Valentine's presence in a room was felt, not broadcast. Founders came to respect him deeply. Not because he demanded loyalty, but because he combined clarity, hard truths, and unwavering support without making it about his personal brand. His discipline was rare. He asked the questions others avoided, made bold calls without fanfare, and never felt the need to remind anyone of his role. Valentine's legacy was built not on charisma or public adoration, but on precision, timing, and trust. His interventions often altered the course of billion-dollar companies without most people outside the inner circle realizing he had played a role at all. He rarely gave interviews, yet his phone never stopped ringing with founders seeking his counsel. Operating as a shadow partner, Valentine stayed close enough to guide, far enough to let others lead, and always decisive when it mattered most. By the time he stepped away from Sequoia, his reputation was sealed, not as a media icon, but as the quiet architect of an investment model grounded in rigor, trust, and minimal ego. In an industry addicted to noise, Valentine proved that strategic silence paired with sharp insight could shape the future every bit as powerfully, perhaps more so, than the loudest voices in the room. Egos as hidden landmines. In most workplaces, leaders are not elevated purely because of technical brilliance or operational competence. Here, they are also selected for their ability to project authority, command presence, and inspire confidence in both teams and stakeholders. However, this very dynamic often seeds a hidden vulnerability: fragile egos. Titles may grant authority, but they do not grant immunity to insecurity. And when that insecurity is triggered, especially by someone younger, faster rising, or possessing rare expertise, it can quietly shift the political ground beneath your feet. This phenomenon has roots in social comparison theory. a psychological framework that explains how people evaluate their own worth by comparing themselves to others in similar roles. In a corporate hierarchy, these others are often colleagues, direct reports, or even industry peers. When someone lower in rank begins to excel, closing high-profile deals, gaining cross-departmental influence, or attracting praise from top executives, it can create an unspoken tension. To the high performer, these achievements are simply part of doing great work. To an insecure leader, however, they can feel like a direct challenge, even when no challenge is intended. Once that perception takes hold, ego defense mechanisms come into play. These can manifest subtly through denial, I was already working on that idea, rationalization, they got lucky this time, or small acts of undermining. Let's have someone else review their proposal before we proceed. In some cases, it escalates into strategic obstruction, delaying approvals, diverting resources, or reallocating credit to others. The behavior may be cloaked in professionalism, but the motive is personal preservation. The danger lies in how invisible this process can be. There are rarely open confrontations or explicit accusations. Instead, the high performer notices a gradual erosion of opportunities. Fewer invitations to key meetings, slower responses to initiatives, or sudden doubts about their fit within the culture. By the time the pattern becomes clear, the damage to credibility and momentum may already be significant. What makes this dynamic so dangerous is its plausible deniability. Every individual act can be explained away as a procedural necessity, a miscommunication, or a managerial decision. But taken together, they reveal a defensive posture, one aimed at protecting the ego rather than advancing the team. High achievers who fail to recognize these hidden landmines risk stepping on them repeatedly, not realizing that in the politics of perception, even unintentional brilliance can be seen as a threat. Tactical humility, the intelligent restraint. Tactical humility is not weakness, it's wisdom in motion. It's the discipline of knowing you're capable, yet choosing not to make that the headline. It's the restraint to let others feel smart, important, and seen, even when you could easily take the credit yourself. The point isn't to shrink, it's to calibrate. In environments driven by ego, hierarchy, and fragile alliances, shining too brightly too soon can be misread as threat rather than talent. People rarely admit they feel overshadowed, but their behavior reveals it in withheld support, subtle critiques, or suddenly being excluded from key discussions. Tactical humility is how you grow without triggering alarms. It means presenting victories as collective, we did it, not I did it. It means letting your boss look good without reminding them you wrote the deck. It means asking for input even when you've already crafted the solution. Because the point isn't just to be right, it's to bring others with you. This isn't manipulation. It's the practical side of emotional intelligence. You're not hiding your value, you're distributing it wisely. Look at how Don Valentine operated. One of the most visionary investors in Silicon Valley, he had sharp instincts and strong opinions. Yet he often stayed in the background, allowing founders and executives to shine publicly. Behind closed doors, however, he was steering strategy, shaping direction, and pulling the real levers of power. That's the power of tactical humility. Staying just behind the curtain so you can guide the play without becoming a target of the actors on stage. In your own workplace, practicing this might mean letting your team present your shared work in meetings, framing your suggestions as building on someone else's idea, or even holding back from correcting someone mid-meeting and addressing it later, privately and constructively. Why? None of this means you're playing small. It means you're playing long. Because in the politics of perception, those who know when not to speak, when not to lead, and when not to win too loudly are often the ones who win the most and last the longest. The reversal, when you must outshine. However, there are moments when tactical restraint becomes dangerous. When leadership is weak or the organization is in crisis, withholding your full capacity may appear as passivity. In such moments, stepping into the spotlight, despite the risk, becomes a necessary act of service and survival. Valentine himself was not afraid to speak up when stakes were high. In boardrooms, where founders became erratic or egos ran wild, he was known to take control decisively. The lesson is clear. Restraint is not silence, it's strategic timing. Mastering the ego equation. Navigating ego, yours and others, is a critical skill in office politics. Don Valentine's success wasn't just due to his business acumen, but also his keen ability to read the emotional climate around him. He knew when to lead from behind, when to speak up, and how to make others feel powerful in his presence. In organizations everywhere, many careers are made or broken not by competence, but by how they manage visibility and ego. Understanding when to shine and when to share the light may be one of the most underrated and valuable career skills of all. You've reached the end of this section. If this reflection speaks to you, please support this channel by liking and subscribing. You're listening to Cerebral Decode. Think deeper, play smarter.